The History of Tom Jones, a Foundling, by Henry Fielding. Book 1, containing as much of the birth of the Foundling as is necessary or proper to acquaint the reader with in the beginning of this history. Chapter 2, a short description of Squire Allworthy, and a fuller account of Miss Bridget Allworthy, his sister. In that part of the western division of this kingdom, which is commonly called Somersetshire, there lately lived, and perhaps lives still, a gentleman whose name was Allworthy, and who might well be called the favourite of both nature and fortune, for both of these seem to have contended which should bless and enrich him most. In this contention, nature may seem to some to have come off victorious, as she bestowed on him many gifts, while fortune had only one gift in her power, but in pouring forth this she was very profuse, that others may think this single endowment to have been more than equivalent to all the various blessings which he enjoyed from nature. From the former of these he derived an agreeable person, a sound constitution, a solid understanding, and a benevolent heart. By the latter he was decreed to the inheritance of one of the largest estates in the county. This gentleman had, in his youth, married a very worthy and beautiful woman, of whom he had been extremely fond. By her he had 3 children, all of whom died in their infancy. He had likewise had the misfortune of burying this beloved wife herself, about 5 years before the time in which this history chusses to set out. This loss, however great, he bore like a man of sense and constancy, though it must be confessed, he would often talk a little whimsically on this head, for he sometimes said he looked on himself as still married, and considered his wife as only gone a little before him, a journey which he would most certainly, sooner or later, take after her, and that he had not the least doubt of meeting her again, in a place where he should never part with her more, sentiments for which his sense was arranged by one part of his neighbours, his religion by a second, and his sincerity by a third. He now lived, for the most part, retired in the country, with one sister, for whom he had a very tender affection. This lady was now somewhat past the age of 30, an era at which, in the opinion of the malicious, the title of old maid may, with no impropriety, be assumed. She was of that species of women whom you rather commend for good qualities than beauty, and who are generally called by their own sex very good sort of women, as good a sort of woman, madam, as you would wish to know. Indeed, she was so far from regretting want of beauty, that she never mentioned that perfection, if it can be called one, without contempt, and would often thank God she was not as handsome as Miss such a one, whom perhaps beauty had led into errors, which she might have otherwise avoided. Miss Bridget Allworthy, for that was the name of this lady, very rightly conceived the charms of person in a woman to be no better than snares for herself, as well as for others, and yet so discreet was she in her conduct that her prudence was as much on the guard as if she had had all the snares to apprehend which were ever laid for her whole sex. Indeed, I have observed, though it may seem unaccountable to the reader, that this guard of prudence, like the trained bands, is always readiest to go on duty, where there is the least danger. It is often basely and cowardly deserts those paragons for whom the men are all wishing, sighing, dying, and spreading every net in their power, and constantly attends at the heels of their higher order of the women, for whom the other sex have a more distant and awful respect, and whom, from despair, I suppose, of success, they never venture to attack. Reader, I think proper, before we proceed any further together, to acquaint thee that I intend to digress through this whole history, as often as I see occasion, of which I am myself a better judge than any pitiful critic whatever. And here I must desire all those critics to mind their own business, and not to intermeddle with affairs or works which no ways concern them, for till they produce the authority by which they are constituted judges, I shall plead to their jurisdiction.